Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tech Down Over. I'm Harold Muliati, and I'm joined by Jeff Blanchard.
Good morning, everybody. And this week we've got a very special guest. Let's get started. And we're back.
And in our center position of power is a returning guest. We've got SomeGadgetGuy, Juan Carlos
Hey guys,
Bagnell.
this is a comfy little spot here. I feel like well bracketed.
You're fully protected.
And thank you.
I'm glad to hear that.
And thank you for joining us again, because we always enjoy people who get into the gadgets and in depth into things that the likes of us can't be bothered to do all the details. So what have you been up to since we last talked to you?
Oh man, I mean, because it's been a while. I had to go back and rewatch some of our previous conversation just so I wouldn't repeat myself too much. But we dug through some deep stuff there. Now there's just been a lot of mobile news. We've seen some interesting developments in experimental phone design, and then sort of an interesting backlash against a major manufacturer from the sort of YouTube reviewer space. But all in all, it's just been fun kind of digging through that. And then I've been spending more time with like my first passion is audio, and I have a desk that's covered in headphones and earbuds right now, and I'm sort of a kid in a candy store as I'm going through some of these other reviews too. So it's been good times. I've been busy, which is that's good. It's been way better to be busy than to not be.
I must admit, I like a lot of the technology, but one of the things that I really enjoy is the audio part of it. So, and I've been looking quite recently just at headphones, cordless headphones, and what's your likes or dislikes with those ones, or is there anything special you've got in your sights at the moment?
You know, the interesting shift that we've seen in the market right now are manufacturers trying to improve on truly wireless designs. I feel like there were some good options that were released last year. I was a big fan of Jabra. Jabra's parent company is a hearing aid manufacturer, so I felt like there was a particular attention to feature set and to details for athletics. But when those launched and when they originally launched, I think they were like $300 earbuds. So you run into some of these, how much is truly wireless worth? And then the whole community was just blown open by AirPods. And that's been an ongoing conversation for me, because I have a hard time. The tech side is cool. The convenience is cool. But I don't feel they're a very good option for folks who have headphones on a lot. As having recently interviewed an audiologist, I don't think they're good for your hearing. I don't think any of the AirPod style headphones have been good for your hearing. So now we're starting to see other players walk in. Samsung released their second generation truly wireless earbud, Creative. If you remember them from like the old sound card days, they're going to be releasing something too. A new Sweetheart company, a smaller manufacturer, but one with an amazing reputation with their community, is one more. They've got some really cool Bluetooth tech coming out too. Over the last 2 years, I think we can finally set aside some of the quality discussions. Like if you're using an Android phone and you pair with a decent pair of Bluetooth headphones, you can utilize aptX, you can utilize LDAC. The quality has just about reached cabled connections under optimum conditions. But if you're a cabled headphone junkie like I am, we still don't have the consistency. Because apparently my butt is a Faraday cage, because if my phone's in my back pocket and I bend over, I start to lose the connection to my earbuds or to my headphones. So, I still have a problem with that, where I'm sitting next to $40 and $50 multi-driver earbuds that I wouldn't use them for professional use, but they're phenomenal for taking care of the fun stuff. So, it's that kind of back and forth. I can spend $120 on something that's more convenient because it doesn't have a cable, but then it's less convenient because I have to charge it and those batteries die out after a year or two. Or I could spend half as much on something that sounds a lot more vibrant, is
Right.
easy to replace the cable. You can pop the driver off, or also put them on a Bluetooth neckband and convert them into Bluetooth headphones. So we're in kind of a headphone renaissance right now. There's some really exciting options out there.
I just think, though, like you were saying about the earpods, I think one of the great things with them for Apple is they would have an ongoing people purchasing them, because the way I see them, if I was wearing them, I'm sure I'd lose a pair each week, because the amount of times the normal earphones drop out of my ears, I would be too scared to bend over. I'd drop them down some. I just don't know how they stay in there, but I would like some of the ones that I've seen. Some of the better ones have something that go round the ear and sort of hold it in there. It's not pushed in the ear. So they're the type the ones I like. And also they've got the cordless, cordless with the cord round the back. And I just thought that seems to be, if you're going to, don't mind the cord round the back of the head, why don't you plug it in?
Yeah. So the cord around the neck, I actually, my favorite Bluetooth earbud, they're all tangled up right now because I've been using these a lot. Again, sort of showcasing why cords and stuff are a little less convenient. I'm doing this live, and man, they really did get knotted up here. I really do like neckbands. And so the idea is you can put better mics, bigger batteries, and they're a little bit more robust because all of this assembly goes around your neck. And then you have little earbuds that can go directly into your ears. So that's actually my favorite Bluetooth earbud style. LG makes a couple different headsets like that. These are the One Mores. I really like the One Mores. But again, it's just about finding different solutions and fitting the right tool to the right problem. And the main issue I have with earpods and AirPods, kind of to what you're talking about, it's a very loose fit. They don't seal the ear, and the driver is actually pretty good. Apple didn't skimp on that driver, but you have zero noise canceling or noise blocking. So increasingly, you acclimate to a certain volume level. You can still hear all the noise around you, so your natural inclination is to turn that up. And I had a conversation with one of the top audiologists in Los Angeles, and she's one of the top audiologists in the world. And we've been seeing this stark rise over the last 10 years of hearing loss in young adults and in kids, to the point where, people in their late 20s and early 30s were actually now becoming candidates for some type of medical treatment, like a hearing aid, to sort of replace what's been lost through this constant just bombardment of audio on the eardrum. So when you look at that earpod, I understand where some people like that they can hear what's going on around them, that have situational awareness, but there's still that tendency to hear what you're listening to from the phone by hitting the ear with more and more and more acoustic force. And so even there, I've been getting really excited about things like bone conduction, where the ear is completely open and these super large drivers sort of conduct audio through tissue. Again, I just feel like there's a consumer education that needs to happen here that major manufacturers are probably not going to lead that discussion.
One topic with headphones that I was interested to see your thoughts on are,
of course,
being that, headphones, we have to put them on our ears, and ears can be kind of gross, to say the least.
I have psoriasis, so my ears are super gross.
How do you keep your headphones clean? Like, what's the best way to keep, especially for like earbuds that go in your ear?
So first of all, a good fit is kind of critical for that. I mean, what I'm using right now to talk to you guys, I'm not going to pull them out because they're wedged in there pretty good, but these are custom molds. These are molded to my ear cavity. And then when you use a product like this, you often get like, it's almost like a little bit of a gel that helps with the insertion and then acts as a bit of it's not really hygienic, but it acts like a bit of a barrier so that whatever's in your ear doesn't get sort of caked on there. But after that, it's just really like, I've got a toddler and we always carry, baby wipes. Like I'm just regularly kind of wiping stuff off with sort of the basic stuff and then letting it properly dry. Okay. I never followed up on it, but there was a story a sort of a medical report, and I want to say it was about 5 or 6 years ago, saying that every hour that you've got something plugged into the ear canal, it starts like a culturing of bacteria. Like you're creating this perfect environment to sort of grow things in the ear. And so the last part of that is just normal, good hygiene, sort of cleaning around the outside of the ear canal, not really jamming Q-tips in there. And then whenever you remove this thing, have like a little cloth or a tissue or like a good hand wipe or something like that, just to give it kind of a break that stuff off, kind of clean it out. Because all of us produce something. Yeah, it's not like right. You can really get around that. But I'll regularly have other people, like I'll try and share. I just got these new earbuds. I'm going to be doing a review on them. I really want you to listen to them. And before I even hand them over, I've taken out some sanitary hand wipes and I've kind of detailed them all around the casing and the driver. And then I let them listen. And then I take them back and I detail them again on a fresh hand wipe. Just like, I don't want anything in my ear that like my ear didn't create itself.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, you mentioned one product there that's the Q-tip. And I think that's about the only product that's what it's designed for. Nobody ever uses it for and always use it the wrong way. They said never stick it in your ear, and that's the only thing people do with it.
So I was a kid, and I minorly ruptured my tympanic membrane because I got water lodged behind my eardrum, and I, like a dumb kid, I tried to something's clogged in there, and I jammed a Q-tip in there. And so there is actually, I just saw it on Reddit again like a couple days ago, that there is some sort of medical there's a concept for a medical device that it looks like a drill, but it's made out of this very, very soft and pliable material that's designed to go past the first bend. There are 2 bends in the ear canal, designed to go past the first bend, and then you twist it, and that drill-like shape is supposed to extract anything that's wedged deeper in the ear canal than what might be visible. So if you really want to clean things out, I mean, there are some things you can do with like saline or other solutions, different types of drips. But I would say talk to a doctor and look at getting it done professionally. Don't try and like jerry rig something on your own. Because I can't use drips because I had a lot of ear infections when I was a kid. So if I get water in there, it just gets stuck. Like it never really comes back out. And so you never really know until you have a problem. And you don't want to create the problem if you can help it.
Right, yeah. And I'm assuming you don't normally need to get stuff out of there so much unless, like, I don't know, maybe a bug crawled in there or something.
As far as I know, I mean, there are definitely medical conditions where you can overproduce. I mean, just like with any other sort of gland or, medical issue, I know that there are people that do have concerns, but I don't think it's a very high percentage of the population. And I think we have sort of a kind of a knee-jerk reaction in society towards like, you might have little red bumps on your face. We sort of
leprosy.
Like our bodies do gross things. I love that I'm on your podcast to talk about this. But we have right now with this sort of obsession on putting your best image forward on social media and stuff, I think we kind of overreact to some of that. And unless it's something that's really bothering you, like this is stuff that happens to everybody. It's created by everybody. And it's usually not any type of impediment to social activities or to using these types of tech and gadgety products and stuff like that. It's just you acknowledge, like, I've got my earbuds here and these earbuds are for me. And if I want someone else to take a listen on them, I'm just going to clean them before I hand them over. You're fine.
That's right. What's your go on, like how for headphones? I see a lot of people with these massive headphones plugged into the phones. And the way I think, is there enough power in the phone, or is it worth it having these whopping great big Beats headphones plugged into a phone? Is it worth it?
It can be. There's sort of an underground smartphone culture, and sometimes it might not be a phone. It might look like a phone. It might be something deceptively not a phone. But there is an underground culture of people that, like me, we very much get into the studying and the testing of the audio hardware on these devices to to get something that's a higher quality or a premium experience. So you can take LG phones as one example, where they have class-leading audiophile grade hardware for their headphone jacks. It's a completely separate chip. It's an ESS. It's a Sabre DAC, which is just incredible at reducing internal noise and improving the signal to noise ratio. And it doesn't touch the audio file. It doesn't touch like the data. It's only about making this the purest, cleanest representation of the files that you listen to. And the amp that's built into that is capable of driving old school studio grade headphones, like up to 600 ohms. If you care about those types of measurements, like stuff that you would never be able to power on a Galaxy or on an iPhone or something like that. So if you see someone who really gets into this stuff, there are a couple options out there. And then I also always have within arm's reach, like a little DAP, like a digital audio player that will do a very, very good job of driving thirstier headphones. So it can be. It's always a shame when you see like a classic pair of Bear Dynamics plugged into like an iPhone, and you're like, that can't sound good. Like it probably sounds fine, but it's not. It doesn't sound as good as what that could really sound like if that thing was being properly driven. And I've been spending some time with the Galaxy S10, and it's fine for consumery earbuds or low power headphones, but there's nothing really special about this $900 phone from a company that bought AKG. And you're like, it's okay. Like for a label that owns my all-time favorite studio grade
did they buy
microphone
them? Did they buy I didn't know that. So did they buy AKG, did they?
Samsung bought out AKG, but then I think a lot of the AKG engineers went elsewhere, which is a shame, because if you've ever recorded on like a C414 ULS, just a classic, a staple of studio recording. It's just the most gorgeous $1,000 microphone. I've got one in the closet behind me. I adore that piece of hardware, but I think Samsung kind of used that as a little bit more of a label swap. Oh, AKG engineers now working at Samsung for the audio experience. And then you plug your headphones into a Galaxy and it's fine. In fact, I'd say it's good, but it's not AKG. It's not studio. It's not audiophile. It's just sort of generically smartphone acceptable.
No,
Harold, you'll have to mark this part on the podcast so Rick can go back and get the model number of the AKG microphone and buy one, because he won't be able to resist that.
Of course, it's a classic. So they don't make the ULS anymore. I learned
so that's even better.
I learned mic technique on if you want, I'll spend the next hour talking about the history of just the C414. If you can get the silver edition with the actual metal diaphragm, as opposed to the polycarb diaphragm, I guess the nylon, they would say it's nylon laminate. That's like, if you can find one in good condition, that mic will sell for thousands. I mean, it's just such a rare piece. But the ULS was discontinued, I want to say, in the late 80s or early 90s. I might have my timetable wrong there, but it was replaced with the XLS, and the XLS is still a perfectly fine phone. Then the XLS got refreshed in the 2000s just for additional polar patterns, but they're all phenomenal. Those are reference grade microphones, and like some of my favorite recordings are things like just getting two of those and miking up a grand piano, and they sound phenomenal. It's again, I have all these warm, fuzzy memories, and then it just makes me a little cranky when that label isn't treated with the sort of historical reverence that it deserves.
Well,
yeah, I must admit, I must admit, I do like. I'm keen on the audio, because sometimes I can put up with bad video, but I just love nice audio, and it's just amazing though how you just go back on TV and that, say 5 or 6 years, and you start cringing at the quality of the audio that they're doing on professional TV shows, and how the dubbing and how they didn't bother putting any background noise in the center of Manhattan. They're just talking and there's no noise, and you think you accepted it. But now, if you don't hear the person who's walking past saying something, you can't accept it. But I just thought, I couldn't watch this one program because what do they used to call it? Looping, isn't it? Where they used to record everything live and then go and dub over with the actor saying the words again. So.
Well, and I think exactly to that point, what we've seen is just this amazing capability for mixing and mastering these layers. I was watching All the President's Men. And this is a phenomenal film, and they're walking around in like some office, and you can hear those hard Foley footsteps that just stand out from the rest of the audio mix, and you're like, yeah. They were recording this on tape and mixing this on multi-track, old school, vintage hardware, and like you definitely never would have been able to blend that into sort of an audio landscape like we can today in our sort of current generation of hardware and software, especially the software ability to model the environment with a Foley artist recreating sound effects. But you've got Dustin Hoffman running down a hallway and you hear that clap, 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 and he almost sounds like a horse. It's such a hard mix for each of those footsteps, and it's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, our threshold for that now has gotten very sophisticated, where it doesn't take much to distract us from the experience that we're trying to have.
Well, I did one little video just walking around. There's a train station and there's a freeway in the background, and it sounded really good, but none of it was real. I made it up, but you can blend them so well that people don't notice these days. And you just had the train taking off, but I just pinched the sound of a subway train out of New York going through a normal train and freeway sound, but making it fade in and out so that you don't notice it's just coming. It's coming from the right direction and that. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's always the best compliment too. Is like no one noticed the mix. And I did my job.
Yeah. But then the thing is, you feel though obliged to show somebody. No, this is I did this because nobody noticed you did it. So.
Right. Well, but you can always go into the flip side of that is when you find like a good mixing engineer or mastering engineer that you really like their work, and you'll like want to share an album that's just been produced. You're like, no, listen to this. Listen to what's happening here. This is so sublime, and you can point to that as also the flip side of that kind of appreciation. Not too long ago, I got my hands on just this amazing vinyl rip of like this incredible studio grade rip of Rage Against the Machine's first album. And I'm just like, anyone who cares about this stuff, I'm just trying to shove it into their ears as aggressively as I can, because it sounds so good. It's just so articulate and so aggressive and so punchy, and the distortion are these perfect sine waves of just pent up rock aggression. I just I need people to know what's so special about this. So the same thing can happen though if you get out of a great action film and you're like, oh man, but like the bullets and I know, and the gunplay and how that mixed with the music and the dialogue floating on top of that. Like I feel like there's still a great base of people that appreciate the care, the craft, those attention to details.
Now, do you think
the only sorry, you go ahead, Darryl.
Do you think that people, if we're able to get people more aware, like you said towards the beginning of the show, of kind of how listening to audio relates to ear health and hearing health and stuff like that, will that also lead people to become more interested in audio quality and just more kind of the finer points of getting a good listening experience?
Yeah, totally. No, the thing that's been very frustrating for me working in the tech space is how many people how many techies, the tech enthusiasts, write off that type of content. Like, general consumers don't care about this. And so then they don't really cover those types of features on a phone or a computer or a tablet, or, like I got a gaming sound card and it's got this amazing amp. And you're like, hey, you can turn off all of the silly like 3D modeling stuff, but just plug in some nice headphones and you're going to hear this. And then I got people replying like, but people don't really care about that. But the thing is, they do. Yeah. Audiences care. It's just that they don't care to articulate the positive benefits. They are hyper aware when something doesn't sound good.
Yeah, but right? I remember in the 90s, the early 2000s, sound cards were like one of the things you had to get when you were building a computer, whereas nowadays most people just use the stock, onboard sound card or whatever that they've got on their mobile. And
I'm not saying that there isn't an educational challenge, and that comes from people that care about this stuff not being gatekeepers, right? Like if I walk into a room and I see someone listening to music on earpods and I go, oh man, I bet you know that sounds like crap, like, well, I've already turned off that person to ever trusting me as a resource for improving their audio situation, their audio conversation. I mean, but the flip side of that is once you've been exposed to, or once you've had that positive experience with something that sounds a little bit better or sounds a little bit nicer, while people might not understand all the mechanics, they might not have the vernacular or the lingo, it's hard to go back. It's very difficult to go back to just sort of what was the base level. And we see that a lot in home theater right now. Mm-hmm. Everyone's rushing out for revised new generations of theater sound bars, surround sound systems. There's very sophisticated directional modeling that's happening at some of the higher end. You put one bar on your TV and it sounds like you can actually bounce echoes off the room. So there is still an education happening. It's just the phone has become the primary sound tracking device. And I think consumers have just accepted that, well, I spend $1,000 and I can play music during my workout. And they don't know that there are a very small number of devices out there that could also be legitimate. I want to focus on the music devices. I want to focus on the audio as the experience, not just distract myself with some audio in the background kind of a thing. And I think with a little bit more education there, as the smartphone has become kind of a commodity, that'll improve. Bluetooth has improved tremendously. So maybe you don't have great audio built into the phone, but you invested in a nicer pair of headphones, so it doesn't matter what you use it with. You're experiencing a higher degree of audio. Consumers do care. It's just right now techies have not helped that conversation, and so consumers don't really trust them to sort of guide that discussion. Yeah. And then what are you left with? You're left with sort of an uneducated gap in the market where some people who might otherwise care about this stuff kind of fall through the cracks.
I feel like it's...
Well, sorry. Okay.
Well, because I feel like
I'm excited too.
It's sort of like, with like what you were saying, with the tech community, it's gotten to this point where it's like, we're like, those are the hi-fi guys, they're weirdos, and, they exist and their equipment is good and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it's like we don't even think about that kind of thing in the rest of the tech community. But there was one thing that you mentioned earlier that kind of piqued my interest. You were talking about people that would be listening to things with really good headphones that might look like a phone but aren't actually a phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, we actually do have. So I've been pointing to headphones and earbuds that were in this like renaissance, but there are a couple manufacturers out there that are still making dedicated iPod Classic style standalone DAPs, right? And there's also, like I said, there's sort of an underground market of people that will find older phones. Like there was a Marshall smartphone that had a pretty decent DAC on it. Older HTCs, when they still had headphone jacks, they'll like gut everything on the phone, but just keep the basic Android core running for the boom sound plugin so that it's a portable media player. And they'll use something else as their actual smartphone. And the same thing happens with older LGs from the V10 on. There's like a collector's market. Very, very quiet. These phones are dirt cheap. You can get like a V20 for like $150 and a half a ham sandwich, and like you can use that as a very high quality portable audio player or portable media player. So again, it's not a core part of the market. There's not a huge demographic for it. But even something like this Fio that I held up is going to look in the hand just like someone kind of swiping away. It runs Android. It's an Android powered device. So it's going to look like you're just kind of messing around on some phone. You can very poorly play like gem swap games on it. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could. But then you plug in and it's got coax, it's got a balanced output. It's got an enormous amp on it. This will drive some really, really thirsty cans if you want to cart this along with you. And then you can use whatever phone you want. You want to get a $200 Moto just to cover your email and social media, you're good, right? And so that's why it can be a little deceptive sometimes. This is basically an Android iPod, and it's not going to broadcast. I'm listening on something audiophile grade if you just happen to kind of glance when you're out and about.
I'm just going to say it amazes me years gone by, because when I was growing up, the sort of rite of passage was you get your car license, you get a car, and you go out, get a proper hi-fi system, and then you get the best quality one you can to put in the car. But as I said, that was the thing. You grew up, and the first thing you got was a proper stereo system with a turntable, amplifier, preamp, power, all that, the cassette deck, everything. And you really concentrated. And I still think now we're getting to the stage where they might get to the quality of that now. Sort of people accept less and less, and same with video and quality. We want more and more, and then something like Angry Birds, just a flat, easy sort of game. Everybody likes those things better than the people who've got the great graphic things in there. Same with audio. We've had the great audio, then they've dumbed it down. People accept that. Now they're wanting better and better.
I think that's the key part of it is what we've seen is sort of a peak, a bubble bust, a drop, and then something is rebuilding, something is happening, and no one can really predict where we're going to end up. But when we went from cassettes to CDs, we saw a generational leap in convenience. And if you ask people about vinyl versus tape versus CD, I think it would be fair to say that our early generations of CDs probably didn't sound as good as vinyl, but were a bit more robust. Every time you play a CD, it doesn't subtly degrade the quality of the audio, whereas vinyl, unless you're very careful about how you store it, present it, play it, and handle it, technically you are slightly degrading that experience every time you use it. When we then went to MP3s, we all got very interested in like, how can I have a little brick in my pocket with the most numbers of songs? And that convenience definitely weighed heavy. It definitely influenced two whole generations of potential music consumers. But now we're coming back to, I think, just a different quality of appreciation. Digital has democratized the distribution and the consumption of this content. We could have a whole other conversation about the damage it's done to the artistic side, the creation of this content. But for the consumption of this content, it's now never been easier. You have more choices. There are easy stores to find higher quality or more convenient quality. You've got streaming options. And that's also opened up a new market for old tech, where now, because of streaming, people aren't buying individual MP3s anymore. We're actually seeing vinyl sales rise to compete against digital downloads, where vinyl, depending on what analysts you follow, in some markets, vinyl is outselling individual song purchases through some sort of compressed medium, which is awesome, because that's taking us right back to where we were during the Napster days. Napster comes out, there's this explosion of sharing content, and then we see music sales rise. It didn't actually subvert the music industry. It was blockbuster albums were selling less, but everyone else was selling more because there was this exposure to this content. Now, Spotify is actually kind of doing the same thing. It's just, I still feel there's an imbalance in how artists are being compensated for their work.
Oh, yeah.
But I still must agree with you there as well. Is a lot of these things that distributed them, there would be a lot of things I would have never listened to, watched, or done anything with. But because I've heard something out there, I've listened to quite a lot more than I would do, because previously you had to buy it, and you would never know that you would like that group or whatever. But I feel quite pleased with myself that I've still got all my records. I've got my record player, and so with the vinyl coming back, and I don't know whether they're remastering some of the putting the albums, but I see an album I paid $11 for now in the stores for $69 for vinyl, and I thought, $70. But I thought maybe because there's, the distribution's not as big as it used to be.
And I think that's definitely something we've got to get used to is, with digital, there is no such thing as a truly like a scarcity economy. With vinyl, they might do a limited pressing and then it's gone. And then yeah, like if I want who was it? There was one of the albums Tool came out on vinyl, and like I'll keep looking. I just don't want to pay hundreds of dollars for it, not knowing exactly what condition it's going to be in. So,
but then again, what I'll do, I'll wait for the people, everybody out there that's buying them now, and they'll get fed up with them in 2 years, and I'll find them in a boot sale or something for $1. So you'll do that.
You know what? So. I mean, like one could hope, but from everything that I've seen, this new breed of music collector are pretty aggressive. I don't know that it'll be likely that someone's amassing a great collection just to go, you know what? I'm done with that. Let me just yard sale this stuff. It's in fact anything more. It's like they're doubling down and getting more aggressive and more brutal about holding on to stuff.
Well, I think with those thoughts on the future of music listening, we're at about the end of our time. So thank you.
I keep forgetting. Like, I was like, you guys run this pretty quick because I think I turned your show last time into like an hour long podcast.
Hey, I mean,
but that's great. That means we've got something else to talk about next time because there's always a lot to talk about. So
totally.
Thanks.
We didn't even make it to like wacky phone experiments and folding phones and stuff like that. So
that's what I wanted to do. We'll talk about because I'm quite interested in the folding phone saga. So.
I mean, if you want to take a minute, we can jump in on that. But I'm very skeptical of tablets that fold into clumsy phones being the future of smartphone computing. So. I don't want to say. I mean, if you guys want to wrap up the show, I don't want to stop you from wrapping up the show.
I think,
we just dropped that bombshell.
We'll have
put
to
it on
today with their folding tablets.
I think we'll have to have you on another time because we've got there's a lot of meat to this, and I don't want to just skim into it and then not be able to.
Fair, totally fair, because it's a loaded opinion, and I've been accused of being against progress because I've got some concerns over this play. So we'll save that for another
and
another
besides,
time.
What better way to end than with a cliffhanger on a loaded opinion?
That's right.
Bum, bum, bum.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Keep your earbuds clean, especially when you're going to pass them to someone else. And we'll catch you next time on Tech Down Over.
Bye for now.
Bye.